There have been a lot of times when people ask me about my favorite part of my Australia trip, and so I don't know who I've told things to at this point and who I haven't told things to at this point. So I figured I'd just make a little video with a highlight reel of stories so that everybody can be caught up. There's too much glare on these glasses. So then you can be caught up and know about all of the best times that I had in Australia. So, without further ado, essentially what happened is I went to Australia on an East Coast round trip. Amazing time. Such a good trip. I only really have good things to say about it. We started in Sydney and then we went up the East Coast to Brisbane, where we met up with my friend Will, who I met on the PACE trip last year. And then we came back down inland. And so unless you've been to Australia, you're not going to know the places that I list, so I'm not going to list them because more people have not been to Australia than have been to Australia. So we started in Sydney, as I mentioned, and we rented this thing called a Go-Get, which is essentially just a car. It's similar to a Car2Go or an Evo that we have here in Vancouver. And we went, the first super memorable experience, there were tons of memorable experiences. I'm not going to be able to list all of them. So we went to the Anzac Walk, which was in Newcastle, and played bowling, because you play bowling. And so we did things like that too, but I'm just going to skip to the stories. So we went to this place called Coffs Harbour, which is a harbor. Obviously, it's a little town, and when we went there, we were being hosted by a Rotarian, and so she was just like, "Oh, guys, we can go jetty jumping," and I'm just like, "Cool, what's jetty jumping? What's a jetty?" And she's like, "Oh, it's like a dock," and so I'm thinking, okay, I know what a dock is. Like, when we go to the cottage or whatever, we'll go jump off the dock. Since experiencing this, Maggie has updated me to tell me that that's in fact a raft that I've jumped off in the past in Canada. It's a raft. So keeping in mind that I'm picturing a raft here, we go out and there's one of those things that you can kind of hook your boats up to, but big boats. So by the time we go to go to the end of this thing where we're going to jump off, I'd say it's about 20 or 30 feet in the air, casual experience. And I mean, I've done cliff jumping before in Muskoka and things like that. And so it's not the height that scares me. Nothing about the height scares me. The issue is that you have to so there's a railing that you have to climb over onto a post, and then spring yourself off from the post into the water. Now there are a couple of things. There's just a couple of things here. First of all, that post is very precariously placed, and so my entire fear was the fact that I would have to climb over this fence onto this post, but I would fail, and so instead of climbing onto the post, I would slip and fall and hit my head or my neck or whatever against this post and die, because that's clearly how my brain works. So I was a little bit scared, just a little bit, but there was one guy on the trip, Sadek, and I would say, if I had to name everyone, give everyone kind of an adjective, I would say that he was the adventurous one. I guess it would be more of a superlative one, but I would say he was the adventurous one. And so he's ready, shirts off, pants down, he's ready to go. So he's already climbed over by the time I even kind of process the entire situation. And he jumps, and he does a good dive. It's he took swimming lessons or something, which of course I never did. So he does this enormous dive into the water, just head first, killing it. And so of course I had to be second, but so I go to jump. But I've never taken swimming lessons. I don't know how to dive. That's something I've never learned how to do in my life. And so I did a cannonball, and, ready, nose plugged, ready to go. But I realized mid-jump, 20 or 30 feet, this is a while. You're not just jumping and then done, on a raft. It's oh, okay, I can still float this entire time, then splash, So it was Interesting. Because I had my nose plugged the entire time because I can't hold my breath underwater. I think, looking back on this, I think swimming lessons would have been a valuable investment as a child, but I didn't know that, so I never took any. So that was interesting. It was a very interesting time. I had an amazing time, though. It was a lot of fun. So Coffs Harbor, thumbs up. Then after Thumbs Harbor, then after Coffs Harbor, we continued to head up the coast. I mean, there were a lot of memorable experiences, but nothing worth really telling. Up to Brisbane. It was nice because I got to see Will, my friend Will, who lives in Brisbane, obviously, and he hosted myself and Liz, the girl from New Zealand who had also come on the PACE trip last year. And what's kind of funny about when I stayed at Will's house was that I had been sick for a lot of the beginning of the trip, and by the time we got to Brisbane, I'm pretty sure it was dehydration, so it's not like a real sickness, but like I was exhausted. So by the time we got to Brisbane, and we were at Will's house, I was just zonked, and we had Indian food because Will likes to text me about this Indian food that he has. And I was like, thumbs up, when I come to visit you, I have to try it. We had no idea that I was going to be coming so soon, but I did. So then we go and we have this Indian food, really delicious, and I'm not sure if it was that night or the following night, but I had a shower at Will's, and then, like, everyone knows me, you know me, I just put a towel around and then continue to talk to people. So I put a towel around, went and sat on my bed in the living room, and then while I'm talking to Liz, Will, and Will's roommate in the living room, I just pass out. Like, I just fall asleep. So I wake up in the middle of the night, just naked, on the couch, like on my bed, in the middle of Will's living room. And I'm like, oh my god, I fell asleep naked, talking to Will and his roommate and Liz. And I want to say that this is embarrassing, but it's too much of like a classic Gabby moment to be embarrassed about, you know? So that was a struggle. That was a struggle that I lived through. And then after that, we went to Tenterfield. And of course, there's whatever it is, the largest granite rock in the southern hemisphere. So we had to climb it. Classic. Something you have to do. This granite rock was this. I'm not even exaggerating about that. That's the messed up part. I'm not even exaggerating when I say that this is the incline. So we had to walk up this. It took me 40 minutes to get to the top. I think it doesn't take 40 minutes. It probably takes about 15 minutes for a normal human. But I, took little breaks and, looked at the view because I was just like, when am I ever going to do this again? Nope. I'm not going to climb. It's this steep. And, apparently there's, a back way you can do it. But it doubles the length, which we ended up doing on the way back, but not the way up. And so the way up, when I went the first time, it was just up, and then it kind of leveled off, and then you got to walk to the top, but still pretty steep and kind of terrifying, because what if I roll off? I'm the kind of person who would just continue to roll, I wouldn't be able to stop myself. What would I do? It's a little bit terrifying, but not, super terrifying. It was a mild amount of terrifying. So then we climbed to the top. It was great. I made it. I signed a little book that said I made it. We were all surprised. Literally everyone was surprised. I'm pretty sure there was a clapping for me because we all thought I was going to give up. Well, they all thought I was going to give up. I know I don't give up on these things. So I knew I wasn't going to give up. So anyway, that was a memorable moment. Not as funny though. Then we went to Dubbo, and I ended up staying with this Rotarian who actually used to live in Vancouver, down the road from where I live now, which was super cool. He and his wife were top-notch. Absolutely loved them. But when I got to his house, so he picks me up in whatever car he picks me up in, maybe it was a Pathfinder, a Nissan Pathfinder or something like that. And we pull into his garage, and I see that there's another old car, and I was just like, oh, why didn't you pick me up in that? That's what I want to take a ride in. It was a nice car. Just a nice old car, like you would go see an old car show, a classic car show, and that would be one of the cars that would be there, you know what I mean? So it's that'd be cool. I'd like to go for, I'd like you to drive me around in that. Then we, went inside, chatted for a while, and then someone asks me if I've seen the garage. I'm like, of course I've seen the garage. That's where we parked the car. They're like, no, the rest of the garage. There are like 8 other beautiful classic cars that this guy owns. So nice. Absolutely beautiful. I didn't even mention that like their house was actually an Airbnb, so I was staying in like a prime suite. I felt like I had a princess bed. I felt like I was like 3 years old again, realistically probably 13, when I like wanted like a princess bed with those poles and like the drapes. It was really nice. Anyway, so Dubbo was really sweet. And what's kind of weird / cool about Dubbo is that they're known for 2 things, the zoo and the jail. So of course we went to both of them. The zoo was really cool. I found out that I like giraffes, which I didn't really know that I liked giraffes before because I guess I haven't really paid attention. They're not my favorite animal, but like I think they were a massive highlight for sure. Then after the zoo, we went to the jail, and it's just like an old jail, and it's kind of like, it's got like that history vibe to it as well. And it was kind of cool because they had like statues, like wax statues that would like move and tell you the story, and they were previous inmates of the jail, so it was pretty cool. And they would tell you like what they did to get into the jail. Some of them would be like, I didn't even do anything. I was just, they just like arrested me and now I'm gonna be hung tomorrow. And it was like, what? If this is true, that's messed up. But then you're like, is it true? You don't really know. So after Dubbo, we went to the Blue Mountains. And the Blue Mountains are really cool because essentially, like, I don't really understand, but like the eucalyptus mist makes the mountains look blue. So they physically look blue, which is really cool. What was really great about the Blue Mountains, we did all the like tourist stuff. So there's the steepest train that goes up a hill there, and so we went on that, and that was really cool. It was just reminded me more of like a roller coaster than anything else, so I wasn't super impressed by that. But one of the Rotarians decided to take us off-roading, which was really awesome, and it was cool because so I'm sitting in the back, and Courtney, who was running the trip, was in the front. And she looked back at me at one point, and she was terrified. Like, just terrified. I've never seen somebody look like that. And she was looking me in the eye. And I was just like, if she's that scared, maybe we're gonna die. So I make a joke, like, oh, because I actually haven't set this up at all. You're just like, why is she terrified? I don't understand this. So we're off-roading, but the issue is, there are, like, rocks on this road. Like, it's not a road. It's, like, a path that you would hike up. You know, and he decides to drive up. And so at one point, the car's like on a 45, maybe a 50-degree angle. And we're like, holy shit, holding on to the holy shit handles for sure. So we're like holding on, like, oh, this is it. I'm looking at Courtney. She has that I'm going to die look. And we're all like, oh, what is going to happen here? We don't know. And so I'm like, I make a joke. I don't even know what I say. Something along the lines of, oh, hope this doesn't tip, or something like that. And he goes, oh, you'd be surprised how far a car can go before it tips. You know, I don't want to find out. That was my reaction. I don't want to find out. I mean, I want to make it by. Like, I want to make it past today. That would be cool. We ended up seeing, like, the most beautiful view, and obviously made it back alive. So, at the end of the day, it was okay, but boy. It was one of those things that you were, in the moment, you're like, oh, what's happening? And then afterwards, you're like, yeah, that was really cool. That was a really cool experience. And I guess he knew that, so he just took us, and it was all okay, but I was not sure I was going to be okay. That's for sure. After the Blue Mountains, we went back to Sydney, and we did some cool stuff. We went to Cockatoo Island, which I think was my favorite thing that we did in Sydney. And we did an audio tour. It was really awesome, and I don't know how else to describe it, but essentially, if you imagine yourself going to a stage, right? Like, the whole thing is set up, like everything is staged. Now you have an audio tour. You have someone telling you, kind of like playing like the theater of the mind, what it used to look like. It's just such a cool experience because you're there. So it's like hands-on, a physical experience, but it's like a movie in the sense that it's like a book maybe. Maybe it's more like a book. It's like an audio book. It's an audio tour. That really like kind of fills in what things would have been like back in the day or whatever. So I really liked that. And when I tell people about my favorite part of Australia, like it might have been that. You know, it could have been any of these things, but it might have been that. I don't know. I don't want to commit to anything. It really depends on the day. But then after that, our trip was over. But like I arrived early, stayed late. So we ended up going to the Australian Rotaract Games. Yeah, because it's ARG. So the Australian Rotaract Games, which was really cool. Essentially, all of the Rotaractors from across Australia come to somewhere, and this year it was in Sydney. And they do like tournament games. So we played footy and ultimate frisbee and soccer for the first part. And then in the afternoon, there was this really hard mystery puzzle prize, which I don't think anybody solved. We definitely didn't solve it. And then that night, it was like this open bar situation, which I've never experienced a Rotaract event that was an open bar thing, because to me, Rotary events are always, there's a lot of alcohol consumption there. So, I mean, it makes sense that it would be an open bar, but like, as you would expect, we drank the bar dry. So that was fun. Some people, I think, hit it a little harder than others, which is to be expected. And then on the Sunday, we all had to wake up and go to a breakfast barbecue, and we did this like scavenger hunt where we just like took pictures with things, and it was mildly to moderately competitive depending on how serious you took it. I think I took it moderately competitive. Somebody actually might have taken it, a couple people might have actually taken it like to like extreme competitive levels, and I think those people won. I think that's the difference. But all in all, as I mentioned, like awesome trip, just a really, really good time. Yeah, it was awesome, like absolutely loved it. Beaches on beaches on beaches, which is why I didn't spend a lot of time talking about the coast, because it was like beaches on beaches on beaches. I mean, I did some other cool things. Like I pet a koala, took a selfie with a kangaroo, and learned how to surf. But those are just like checklist items, you know, like they don't really come with really good stories. So that's why they weren't mentioned earlier. Yeah, all in all, had a great time, and thanks for watching, and I think now you're caught up on all my best Australia stories, assuming you heard the ones from last time. Let's be honest, there's always a few more. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.